In this video, we're going to be talking about my DNFing of The Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler. This is probably only the second Octavia Butler book that I DNF, but I just want to say that I'm going to keep this book on hold toward the end of my TBR. So with that being said, let's get into this video. But the key question I do want to ask is, between books, what is a fair amount of time between books that you can take when you're going from one book to the next book in which your interest in the particular series does not devolve? What's up, guys? It's me, Troy, and I'm here giving another video. Anyway, thank you everyone for recently commenting, like, and subscribe. This is another FauxCast video. Thank you so much for being here and staying with me, girl. Just staying with me. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. But anyway, today I want to talk about hashtag read so lit. What will just catch you guys up with what I've been reading. Just share with you guys, because you know this is a channel about books, right? So we talk about books. All right. But anyway, so initially I did put a TBR together for hashtag read so lit, and I started to read onto that TBR, and I was like, well, you know what? I just didn't feel myself keep moving forward with that. What happened was, well, what I did was I went to each of my bookshelves and I picked out two black authors writing in mystery, two writing in sci-fi, and four in a cross between autobiography, contemporary, and nonfiction. And then I compiled the TBR. And so I started to get into the TBR reading with the sci-fi books first, and then it just kind of fell flat, and I was like, maybe a touch discouraged. But what I decided to do to just keep myself energized was, instead of doing the TBR from the books I already own, I was going to go to my wish list on Amazon, and I picked out 4 books there. I did the research of finding whether or not the bookstores in my area actually had the books. They didn't, so I went to the public library and ended up getting all 4 books. So I can't wait to move into those books really soon. With that out of the way, the book that kind of broke my TBR or made me reimagine my destiny in this whole journey for this particular month, which I think is just year round, was actually Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler. Yes, you heard it here first. News Channel 19. I got 100 and something pages into this book, and I decided to DNF. I know, blasphemy, right? I don't care. It is what it is. I only got my mind. I can't think for nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't think for nobody else, so I gotta tell it my truth as it is. But anyway, so with that being said, let me give you like a little information as to what this book is about, because it is the second part in a series, the Earthseed series, that's written by Octavia Butler. As it concerns the first book, Parable of the Sower, when unattended environmental and economic crises lead to social chaos, not even gated communities are safe. In the night of fire and death, Lauren Alamina, a minister's young daughter, loses her family and home and ventures out into the unprotected American landscape. But what begins as a flight for survival soon leads to something much more, a startling vision of human destiny and the birth of a new faith. So that's from the first book. I read Parable of the Sower maybe about, I think it was like toward the tail end of 2012, and I loved it. Flew through it, just had a great time reading that book because it is so a fast-paced turner, full with lots and lots and lots of thrills and chaos. It kept me reading. One of the things that I will say that kind of differentiated my experience with the first book as it compares to the Parable of the Talents, the second book, is that Octavia Butler literally dropped the reader into the chaos of the destruction or downfall of America, and extensively speaking, the world, in Parable of the Sower. We're talking this character of Alamina, who is fleeing from her gated community with her siblings as her house is on fire, as her neighborhood is on fire and being destroyed by these radicals. You know, she's out on the roads, the landscapes, as it said, of America, traveling, picking up different people within the group that she forms as she goes along the roadside. And as she's doing this, as she's traveling across America, she's creating this religion or this philosophy called Earthseed, where the main doctrine of it all is that God is change, and you know, change is inevitable. Even though it's been a stretch of years since I read that first book, and here I am finally picking up the second book. So that may be part of the complications that I had, but I think the thing that happened, that despite the first book, you know, Butler drops us into the middle of all the chaos, as well as the development of Earthseed. I think with the second book, so much is already established. You know, as the opening of the book goes, you know, the character of Alamina, she has created her community called Acorn. It's gated or pushed back away from, you know, sort of blocked from all the chaos that's already that has arrived within America on the streets. You know, we're talking rapes, murders on the street, just absolute crazy chaos. And to add to that, I've always said that Octavia Butler, I love her writing, and this is kind of a good thing and a bad thing, supposedly, maybe, but she's always been one of those writers that made me uncomfortable, as well as I always got like a very claustrophobic feel when it comes to her writing. Like, you're reading her books and it's like, oh my God, there's just no way out. But back to my point, Parable of the Talents, you know, it does give us the sort of after effects of all the events that took place in Parable of the Sower, where, you know, like I said, Alamina is in a gated community. She's sort of like this high religious, and not narcissistic, but a really high religious force or leader within this community, where she's preaching, you know, Earthseed, her religion, her philosophy, her ideology that she created to, you know, convey peace upon the earth, which, you know, she got a lot going against her in this aspect. You know, and some of the people that's within the community, they are more or less a part of her, or internalizing her doctrine. But the point is that, and it's not really a bad thing, you know, she's not, you know, brainwashing, so to speak. You know, they have free will as is. But I think the thing is that as the book progressed past 100 pages, I didn't necessarily see enough of the opposite forces combating against Alamina's beliefs. You know what I mean? Like, they had their community where they were gated and they were protected, but, you know, I think all the conflict and complications were going to take place once they stepped outside of that. And like I said, without that happening much more within the first 100 pages, things kind of start to waffle a little bit for me. You know, it can be a book full of as many ideologies, and, you know, it could be so many different questions that's asked of the reader within the book, but you have to tell the story too. You know what I mean? You have to have your story being told at the same time to keep readers interested. And I just was slowly slipping out of my interest in there and looking forward to something else. But I think one of the things that I really enjoyed within those 100 pages, however, is how Octavia Butler, although this book was published in 2000, how Octavia Butler managed to almost sort of kind of prophesize a lot of what's actually taking place today. And I mean that in the sense of a leader who is inciting a lot of religious motivated violence, a lot of sort of war on the poor, war on the disenfranchised. There's this war on the environment as well. Just a lot of different things. I'm trying to be careful here, you know what I mean? Because I don't want to make this like a political thing. But those first 100 pages, if you look beyond some of the slowness of what's taking place, there's a lot of things that is kind of mirroring or reflecting back to our current times with our current leader here in this country. You just have to look, you just have to read it for yourself to understand it. And it was very startling that how much Octavia Butler had managed to pick up. It's almost like she had a daggone time machine or something. So that was great. I enjoyed that. But from what I'm understanding, a lot of that combativeness that I wanted to see with Alamina fighting, you know, the much more radical religious groups outside of Acorn, the small community of Acorn, I think that starts to take place a little bit after that first 100 pages. But from what I'm understanding from some of the reviews I read, there's a stretch of time where it's filled of all the women characters being raped and then murders, and you know what, I was just like, you know what, maybe some other time, basically. And then after that period, that's when it slows back down and drives its way on toward the end. So maybe later, you know what I'm saying, like maybe later. But I decided to go ahead and put Parable of the Talents aside. I did enjoy the pages that I did read. I just knew that as I was reading from further and further, a lot of it was slipping away from me. So many different characters was also in the village that we had to pay attention to as the reader. A lot of it was just kind of slipping away. And I decided, you know, instead of just completely just DNFing it, I was like, let me just put it aside and move on to the next book within my TBR for #ResoLit, which I'll get to in the next video.